Welcome to the OddKey Cafe, a live show where we delve into the minds of incredible comic artists, illustrators, and creators big and small. Every episode, we're joined by a guest to discuss their work, inspiration, and the behind the scenes of their craft. This show is in live question and answer format, so be sure to join the McFarlane digital community to hear these live. Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us on the OddKey Cafe. Hello and welcome everyone to tonight's OddKey Cafe. I hope everyone is having a good evening. Tonight we're joined by a legend in the space. He's inked for Image, Marvel, DC Comics, Netflix, and so much more, winning multiple awards for being one of the best inkers. Please welcome Jonathan Glapion, aka the Black Revolt. How are we doing tonight, John?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty swell. I appreciate you being here tonight. And like I said, it is community Q&A, so everyone can come up at any point in time. But I guess to get started, would you like to give the audience a brief introduction into yourself?
I suck at this. I think you did pretty good.
I covered all the bases.
I liked your introduction. No, I just I've been I started out in industry. Actually, I should say. You didn't mention did you say Image, that I inked for Image?
I did.
Okay. All right. Well, that counts. I was going to say I started out with Todd McFarlane Productions. That was my entry into comics, and actually collecting comics. When I started picking up comics, Todd was my gateway drug into comics. So it was a perfect entry into comics to be under the TMP umbrella. So I worked with through a lot of the different books through TMP before moving on. But yeah, that's I didn't catch where you said that's where I started, but yeah, that's where I started.
Awesome. So yeah, you said were you a Todd McFarlane fan, Spawn fan before you was that like your inspiration to the comics you said? So that's how you got started?
Yeah, like Spider-Man. I started picking up those books. I was kind of like a late bloomer with as far as comics. I didn't read a single book I picked up, to be honest with you. I was addicted to the art. And I loved Todd's crazy style and his sense of design. It just was, fun things to look at, fun books to check out. And it hooked me. And then I think from Todd, I started picking up some Jim Lee books and stuff like that. So, yeah, that was those were the good old days, way back when.
Well, could you talk a little bit about maybe what was it like when did Todd contact you, or did you like try to reach out to Todd? How did you get your first gig with Image?
So this is a crazy story. How I got into comics was completely accidental. So this is where I date myself. I don't know the ages of people in this community, but if anybody remembers the show called Entertainment Tonight, they used to do a segment called How They Do That. And in the segment, they would show how things were made. And the segment that I saw happened to be on Todd, the making of Spawn. And it tracked how Todd would call Greg Capullo, talk to him on the phone about, plot ideas and stuff like that for Greg to draw the books. And I watched that on TV, and I was amazed because I thought at that time, I thought everyone had to live in the same studio or be in the same studio to work to create these books. And they showed like this map of the United States, and they do this graphic where, Todd's calling Greg, and then Greg ships the pages, and they show the little plane, and then Brian Haberlin gets the files for colors. And so I was like, wow, that this is actually a job. You don't have to live in the same place. Everybody's all over the place. So that sparked my interest in trying to figure out, how to even get into comics. I had no idea. I'd never been to a comic book convention. At that time, I'd never even gone to like a comic book signing at a store. So after seeing that, it kind of sparked my interest. I had a friend in high school who drew comics, in school, and he was the cool kid. Everybody crowded his desk because he was cranking out this stuff while I was in the back doing Bob Ross paintings of the class. And so I talked to him, and he was telling me how to kind of get in, and if you can, go to a convention or go to a local signing, you might meet somebody and kind of network that way. And it just so happened there was a local signing. I want to say it was at Atomic Comics in Phoenix, Arizona, or Tempe, Arizona. And there was like a flyer that I saw, and I was like, oh, I'll check that out. And I kept getting lost. I couldn't find the place, and I was almost about to turn around and go home, and I just so happened to spot the place. And then there was a line, out the door around the building, and I noticed people had portfolios. I didn't have anything. I didn't have a piece of paper. I didn't have a pen. I don't even know if I had money. But I did know the flyer said that there was an inker, who's Chance Wolf. The graphic designer was Brent Ash, and there was I don't remember. I think there was a colorist. So I have a background in illustration, so I knew I wanted to draw, but there was no penciler there. So I figured the closest person to the penciler would be the inker. So I waited in line and walked up and talked to Chance, and I only asked him what type of nib did he use. And he told me, and I didn't really. Then I walked away. I didn't have anything else to ask. It was a little bit embarrassing. I didn't have anything from the sign. I felt embarrassed. It's like I don't have anything for you to sign. I just have this question. So I knew I needed to learn the medium. So I figured the starting point would be the tools. So I asked him that question, and I happened to stick around after the signing. I just kind of hung out in the shop and was picking up some books, and he came up to me and had some people waiting with their portfolios, which was kind of awkward because I didn't have anything. And so we just started talking about art, and he could tell that I knew what I was talking about as far as art goes, I guess. And he gave me his business card. He said he was looking for an assistant to give him a call in a couple of days. And I was like, oh, cool. All right. So he gave me the business card, which was a business card that said, Chance Magic, or it was a magician business card. So then I thought he was messing with me. But I took the card. I was like, okay, that's funny. So, I let a couple days go by, and then I call him, and we start talking on the phone, and he happened to ask me, he's like, so, he explained the whole thing, what he was looking for. And then he asked me, where did I live? And I told him, I was like, I live in these apartments, and he was like, oh, is that off of so-and-so street? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, dude, I live in the same apartment complex.
Wow.
So he lived a building around the corner from me, which is the other crazy thing was it's like it's probably like a 5-minute drive from Todd's house. So I was in this circle, and probably 10-minute drive from Todd McFarlane Productions, like the offices. So this whole time I had this interest in figuring out how do you get into comics. I was in the bubble and didn't know it, because you'll find out, later on when you're doing this stuff, most of us don't ever go outside. So it's kind of, aside from going to a convention or a signing, like how I met him, you never see each other, we don't go anywhere. So he ends up inviting me over to his house to show me what he does. And And I offered to like spot blacks, which is whenever you see like a pencil page and it has an X. Let's say you have like a rectangle and it has an X in it. That means, fill that in with black ink, solid black ink. So I started doing that for him, just this super entry level thing, um, to build up the trust and learn the craft of inking. Yeah, I know how to draw and paint and all those other things, but I didn't know that craft. So, and working over someone else's is a bit odd. So I offered to work for the first. I told him I'll do the first month for you for free. I'll just that way if I suck, you didn't pay me anything, and neither of us feel bad. So I literally worked at his coffee table for like a month, and that's kind of how I really broke in, and I just I worked ever since then, and just kind of worked my way up, from the very basic spotting blacks to then doing some things in the backgrounds, and then you just kind of move your way up through the page. But yeah, that's how I lucked into comics.
Wow. It all started with a single question about the nib of a pen.
Yeah, just a random weird question, I guess. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, you've been in the industry for quite some time now, and you talked about how
Yep.
you started out obviously on physical, and I'm assuming you made the transition to digital.
Mhm.
What was that process like, and how do you see like this
Um,
industry changing with technology changing?
well, the funny thing about the digital, it I still like when I ink Greg, we still work the old school way. He's FedExing me his original pencils, and I'm inking right over his pencils. The inking over blue line or any kind of digital thing, that kind of the first thing that came along was the blue lines, and that was a thing that kind of was a weird. So so before blue lines got really big, I was working with Clayton Crane, and we were at Top Cow working on some stuff, and he he I don't even think I had a computer. I think I did my printouts at Kinko's. And so we happened upon this idea of let's see if we could do a page from like a cover, pencils, inks, and colors all in one day. With all of us living in different locations, not being in the studio, we had like this, I don't know, this kind of weird attitude. We felt out of place at Top Cow. um, because it always seemed like this big studio kind of thing, and so we never felt comfortable. So I think we were trying to be rebels or something, and prove that yeah, this we can do a cover in one day from pencils to colors, pencils, inks, and colors, and turn it in. And so we did that, and that's how the blue lining thing came about. Because once we figured out with blue lining you didn't need the physical pencils, and we realized quickly that was going to stick, because when we turned that cover in, we talked to the colors and said what we were trying to do, and we were all in on it. So we turned it in so fast, I got an email back from editorial, like blasting me, just going off about, oh, this cover wasn't approved or this and that. And I'm like, well, how does it take you longer to approve a cover than it does for all three of us to do our jobs? So that's when it clicked. That's when I remember talking to Crane on the phone, and we both said, this is never going away, because it makes too much sense from a corporate standpoint of saving money. And it also kind of, so it makes the sort of pond bigger, because now you don't have to worry about physical pages all over the place. Um, and you have guys in locations who may have internet and may have a printer, but they don't have a FedEx location. So so I think that's kind of how the blue line's sort of stuck. It's not a preference of mine. It has its pros and cons. I don't have any issues with it, other than depending on who you work with, you can miss a lot of nuances. Greg is very difficult to ink over blue lines. The pros is it's like you have a virgin page. The page is clean. You don't have to worry about any smudges or anybody else's oily hands touching that page first, and then your ink bleeding. But the cons to it depends on little small nuances, depending on who you work with. Greg has can have very subtle shading and superfine detailing on microscopic detailing on some things. So if you print that page too dark, then it interferes with the ink. And then if you print it too light, then I was starting to lose. You'll start to lose some things. So I guess the alternative to that would be the next best solution, I guess, would be digital inking, which then it doesn't yield you any physical like artwork. It's just all digital. So I don't have any issue. I did digital inking. It's not all that fun. I feel like I'm slower. If I'm doing so-called inks, quote unquote, inks over my own work digitally, I'm fast. But if I'm inking someone else like Greg, I notice I'm slower. And I don't exactly know what that is. I think because I use a lot of when I'm inking Greg traditionally, I'm using a lot of brush, so I know how to get a lot of mileage out of that one tool. And with digital inking, you can run into either you're zooming too much, or you're, to get different effects, you're looking for different brushes. So
and I'm sure, there's a lot of
time
there.
Yeah, there's a lot of it eats up your time a little bit. So, but I like all the mediums really.
Sweet. Yeah, that's interesting that you work maybe faster on your own stuff rather than others, but I could see where that would come into play. You want to make sure it's perfect because it is someone else's, so you're second guessing yourself.
Yeah, because it starts to become a thing of styles. You don't like if I ink Greg how I ink myself, then it doesn't look like Greg. But inking myself, I'm not. The funny thing about when I ink myself is I get to let go and not worry about all these precise, perfect lines. I have no interest in that. I notice when I ink myself, it's more this sort of chaos is interesting to me. I don't know what it is, but I think it's just a little bit more relaxing. I like the imperfections.
We have a few questions from the audience. Coleon asks, how long does it usually take you to ink a page?
Ooh. So that really depends. That's going to always depend on who you're working with and the styles, how detailed the page is. So when I was doing Court of Owls, and the older you get, the smarter you get. You stop timing yourself. You make yourself miserable. But I think some of those pages were like 5 hours at the minimum, maybe, unless I got lucky, and then there was like Greg did something super simple, and it was like you got a lucky day where it's like a 2 hour day or 3 hours, but it could go from anywhere from 5 hours to 16 hours. Um, if you look at, so for a good example, the opposite of my Court of Owls days would be Dark Knight's Metal or Death Metal. Those pages took forever. Some of those pages took a couple of days, especially like the double page spreads with all the characters. Those are like you look at those pages, and to be fair, Greg, some of those pages he spent 2 or 3 days on them, so I wasn't getting them done any faster.
Raul, appreciate you coming up on from the audience. We have a question. Go ahead.
Hi, hi Ren, hi Jonathan. I am a big fan for your work. I love your inks in death metal. It's so amazing, and your art for Spawn and your post illustrations in your Instagram are so awesome.
Thank you.
I have two questions for you. I want to ask you, what materials do you use when you inking? When do you?
What I think you said. What materials do I use when I'm inking?
Yes. Sorry, if my English is 11 is poor.
No, you're fine. I think we got cut off a little bit.
I think he was asking. Yeah, I think you were right. He's asking what kind of equipment do you use to ink?
So, God, I have a ridiculous amount of different nibs that I use. God, I would be better off telling you what I don't like to use because I have so many different nibs. It's not even funny. So most of the time, people will tell you to most guys are using Hunts 102. That's how I started. I hate that nib. It's crappy. It's just a terrible nib to me. So I use the G pin like nibs. Those are cool. I like to use brush a lot. I don't know if a lot of people realize how much of Court of Owls was actually brush. I would say like 80% of the page was brush, and then I would go in with a nib to kind of embellish things and hit the faces and any fine detail. I God, I have so many. I can't even think of my favorite tool would probably be a brush. And the brushes I used are, I used to use the Raphael brushes, but now I use these brushes from Rosemary and Co. They're in the UK, and they're a synthetic blend brush, which is like the Raphaels are like $20 brushes, and the equivalent of the brush I use now from this company is like $3. And they're just as good. So brush. I'll use pens. I'll use not so much Pigma pens, but like the I forget the other brand. Molotov makes a good pen that's sort of the equivalent of a Pigma pen. And then I like the Uniball Signo G pen. I use that a lot in Court of Owls for like rendering some detail stuff. And it's like a gel pen, but it's a waterproof ink. Trying to think what else. Yeah, I think if I showed you a picture of my desk, you'd be like, oh, "This is ridiculous."
Thank you. I have a second question. Mm-hmm. I want to be an artist like you and Todd, and I want to I want to ask you a tip or advice for drawing and inking.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's just asking for any advice for a newer young
Oh.
artist coming into the space.
Oh, okay. So really the best advice I could give as far as that, draw as much as you can. And don't shy away from tackling things that are difficult. I think the older we get, we kind of shy away from the harder stuff. If you watch a kid draw, kids will draw anything. It doesn't matter. They're not worried about what people think. It's just in their head what they know they want to create. So I think stay off the internet as much, social media, and draw more than you're on Instagram. It's all cool to post that stuff, but really the only real cure is to just draw as much as you can, and find some good influences that inspire you.
Thank you so much. You're my influence and one
Thank you.
part of my influence for my drawings.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
coming
much.
up. I appreciate you coming up. She Spawn, what's going on? How are you?
Good tonight. How are you?
Doing swell.
Hello.
Hey, Jonathan. I know that you've done a lot of work, and I hope this question hasn't been asked already. I came in just a little bit late, but I know you do a lot of work on Greg's pencils, and he is very detailed in his art.
Yeah, he's crazy.
And there's a lot of other artists that are less detailed. So when you ink one of the other artists that might be less detailed and you might have to add a little detail yourself through your inking, is that harder for you to do than doing Greg's that already has all the detail? Or is it harder to do Greg's? Do you find it harder?
Well, the weird thing is a thing happens when you do this for 20 plus years. Things stop being so much hard as they're just labor intensive, because over 20 years you've probably tackled all kinds of things. You've probably seen all kinds of things, which I have, and I've inked a lot of different styles. I remember when I started working at Marvel and I inked over Mike Norton. There's a book called Gravity. I think that's what I started out on. And he was super clean, super cartoony, clean. So for me, coming from the Spawn books and the Top Cow stuff, Marvel didn't even think I could ink that way. I could ink clean because everything they saw was gritty. So for me, I remember that was a bit difficult because I think when things are sort of stripped down to their more simple form, it has a deceiving look of ease, but it's not always so easy because wobbly lines will stand out. A lot of times when you're inking things that have a lot of texture or splatters or rendering, you can kind of hide some things in there. But when something is a lot cleaner, you don't have anything to hide. You can't hide anywhere. But I remember that was a bit difficult for me. But the funny thing is, after I did ink Mike Norton, and then something else came along, Marvel didn't think I could ink anything gritty. So they only thought I could ink, slick things and really clean, which was weird. as far as Greg, Greg, I don't find Greg difficult to ink. It's always challenging because somehow he has been able to, through the years, shrink himself to the size of an ant, and he draws characters that size, and they all have faces and smiles and just expressions. So, so then you have to kind of just adjust to that that thing. So, funny story though. I'll tell you this funny one that you'll probably appreciate, and this has to do with Greg and Todd. So when I went to Phoenix and I was helping Todd on Spawn 300, we were next to each other, and Todd was looking at a page, and he said, "What do you?" It was a tiny character, and I was waiting for him to go after that character, and I'm laughing inside. So I've seen plenty of these, and so I keep peeking over and seeing me. He's avoiding it. And finally, he said, "What are you doing with these? You ever just erase these? You ever just erase these?" And I was like, "No, I can't erase anything because I'm not Todd McFarlane. Like, you might be able to get away with that. I cannot." So that was a funny little, even it kind of Greg's drawing style through the years. If you look at the early or Spawn stuff, to me, that stuff looks like as big as a billboard. Now the way he draws is there's so much finesse and nuance to everything. Even the smallest characters, I don't see anybody drawing how he draws small characters like that. Background characters with expressions and things like that. So it's not so much hard as it is. It slows you down.
When you're working on a page for an artist, do you, while you're working on it, do you ever have any back and forth with the artist, like send him a piece of your partial work, and
no,
he says
no, never do that. No, with Greg is really good at trusting the people that he's working with, so if I send, I'm trying to think if there's ever, usually Greg will send me videos of pages that he's working on when they're like really labor intensive pages. And then he does like a voiceover and it's pretty funny. So he'll show me the page and I'm looking at it, but it's not this is what I'm thinking if you do this here kind of thing. There's been a couple of occasions where he explained what he was trying to convey in the pencils. So then it gives me something to chew on. When I get it, I'm like, oh, okay, I get what you're going there. I get what you're doing there. But that, God, in all the years I've worked with Greg, I could probably count on one hand how many times, that's happened. I think I answered your question. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling.
Yeah, you answered it.
Okay.
Do not.
But I don't ever send anything though.
Your work.
Do I what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
You answered it. It was basically do not show the artist your work as you're doing it.
Well, I mean, I say that, but you can. You just have to. You can get yourself into a little bit of a situation where if on that end they start nitpicking, it can really trip you up and make it difficult for you to kind of focus on what you need to be doing. It's better in my opinion, it's better for each party to let each other do their thing and then sort of have a meeting of the minds at the end and go over sort of things that might not be gelling.
Right. And when you have those meetings of the minds at the end, do you have to go back and correct often, or just let it go?
Yeah, no, I don't have those meetings.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Saying, if you want to go
I get what they get.
no, I've never had like an editor ask me to fix anything, or I've never had. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I probably had pencilers that I did some work over that they probably didn't like, or I just don't want to know. I just I just kind of keep moving, because I don't live or die on one page alone. It's the volume of work. I try to do my best on every single piece that I work on, and I try to stay. The most important thing for me is I try to stay true to the penciler. I'm never trying to take over with my inks or air quotes inking style, whatever that is. I try to stay sort of inject some of what I do, but not step all over the pencils.
Well, I've admired your work for many years, and I think you're the best out there. Inkers are pretty much the unsung heroes of the comic industry.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
Well, thank you for answering my questions. I'm going to get off the stage and let somebody else up.
Thanks, G-Spawn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got a question from the audience. Katie Long asks, other than inking, is there any type of art that you like to make personally, or do you do any personal art with different mediums, or is inking just your style?
Yeah, no. If you go to my Instagram, most of that stuff is my work now. Like if you were to scroll back all the way back, you would see mostly inking, and now it's more dominated by my personal pieces, whether it's just commissions or just something that I do for myself, or something I do for myself then to just sell, or covers. I'm doing covers now, so and usually the mediums, like I feel sorry for my wife because I have quite the collection of art supplies, and she usually has to put up with me like buying way too many different things. Oils, watercolor, acrylic, wash, pen and ink, pretty much everything. I don't have any digital. I don't have any issues with just whatever mediums.
Man,
like them all. Yeah. You only live once.
Yeah, Wolfman, I see you got your hand up in the audience. Come on up and go ahead and ask your question, bud. Or not, I guess we'll wait in the meantime. Tunnel Rat asks in the audience, what is the hardest part or feature of inking Batman or Spawn? Like, what is the hardest part of that character?
What is the hardest part? Nothing again is like hard so much as it is
just time consuming.
Like it's more like the things I noticed that kind of make me go, oh God. Like, especially when I'm working traditionally, it's funny because anything that requires a template, I'm like, oh my God, I gotta get a template. And I don't know how young everybody is here, but templates, the ellipses and all the different sizes. I have all those old school things that are extremely expensive for whatever reason now. So those are the things like I run into where I'm like, damn it, I wish this was digital. It's so much easier.
Hey, am I on?
pieces.
Yes, sir. Wolfman, welcome to stage.
Hey, Jonathan's chance.
Oh my God. Hey, were you here from the beginning?
No, someone just texted me that this was going on, so I had to join Discord. Then I had no idea how to communicate, so I just hit the wave button.
You missed the story where I gave all credit to you because that's how I broke into the industry.
I appreciate that, but I probably get credit for the first 5 minutes of what you do, and the rest is all you. Oh, that's pretty cool. Oh well, hey Jonathan,
so
what's that?
This is for you guys. This is Chance Wolf. This is I told you guys how I broke in. This is the person who I met at the local comic book signing, who was inking Spawn at the time.
Wow.
That's how I broke in.
Full circle.
And yeah. So and he's the one who gave me the I don't know if I can cuss in here, the bullshit magic card to try to throw me off his scent. And remember that, Chance?
No.
Yeah, you gave me your business card, but it was a magic card.
That's right. That's right. You had me floating that ball on the sword or whatever.
Yep. So one of the things when I work with Chance, one of the things once I started getting more rolling with him, I was over at his house more than I was at my own house, and I would try to work. I would work so long. Remember, he would fall asleep, and I would do a 24-hour shift because if he was asleep, then I could kind of sneak in more inking while he was asleep. And then I would just ask for forgiveness in the morning. So,
which is always a welcome surprise, actually. Hey, I was going to tell the people listening, the big thing about when I noticed Jonathan at this book signing, one thing he did not bring is any comic book samples. And I thought it was the coolest thing.
I didn't have anything.
Nothing. He had an art portfolio, but it was a fine art.
No, I didn't. No.
Oh, you didn't? You showed me that later?
I brought that to your house.
Oh.
I didn't have anything.
Yep. Oh, then I just grabbed you because you were cool.
Yeah. That was cool, and I had a good question.
And the other thing is that, but when he did show me the portfolio, getting back to that, what was cool is it wasn't comic book stuff. What I'd seen as a really awesome artist. So I knew if he could draw this really cool stuff and paint it, this should be a no-brainer for him, And I don't want to diminish inking, but it's just, there's a level of art that you're doing with colors and design and all that. When it comes to inking, I figure you could zero in on that, no problem, and nail it, and clearly you did.
Yeah. I mean, I had a good support system, so,
Well, Chance, while we have you here, do you mind telling us maybe a funny story you have of Jonathan? Something maybe
a funny story.
I can't. It's so far back. It's hard for me to remember. To be honest, anything that funny that happened is probably more stuff that we can't talk about.
Yep.
No, Jonathan and I at 2 a.m, completely delirious.
Oh, you remember oh wait, can I tell but you did have a shrine. Remember the shrine?
Which shrine?
Was it Christina Applegate shrine or something?
Oh yeah, at McFarland's studio.
Yeah. So usually when he mentions 2 a.m, there was always we even zeroed in on this. It was always 2 to 3 a.m. We got loopy.
Yeah.
And it lasted for at least an hour. And we every morning I would always say, if I make it from 3 to 4, if I make it to 4, I can make it all the way through and do a 24-hour. But you would stop and play the guitar, and we would just get all stupid and
drink another 6 cups of coffee.
Yep.
Oh man, it was awesome. But I'll tell you one thing about anyone else listening. That I helped out Jason Gorder at the beginning too, and teaching him some inks. And the thing I called it was inking boot camp, and it's what I learned when I became a sign painter. This method, and it was to do a bunch of strokes with the brush, sign painting brushes, and they're all a bunch of rudimentary strokes. You're not even doing a letter yet, right? This old timer taught me how to do this. So he made me fill up stuff for like 2 months, just sheets of crappy paper and watercolor paint. Ultimately, I learned how to paint signs. With the inker boot camp, when I told Jonathan as well as Jason, I said, watch these lines, tick, 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 stretch that, this little series of lines that said, do these for about 10,000 times and fill up a bunch of sheets of paper. And then you should be able to start doing this. And Jonathan did it.
Yeah.
He
I sure did.
dedicated, did not screw around, stayed focused. And I tell you, it's what it takes. It takes a lot of hard, unpaid work to get to a level of, professionalism,
Yeah.
So,
and it takes a lot of what I don't see nowadays is a lot of, I started inking, to be honest with you. And Chance will tell you, when I started inking with him, I like I said earlier, I just started spotting blacks. And I knew how to draw, I know how to paint, and he knew it. But I think the problem that I'm seeing now with upcoming inkers and new inkers is they're tackling the whole page.
Yep.
So they're not focusing in on solving problems one at a time and building confidence. A lot of times you're getting discouraged because you're doing things that are sort of above your level at that time. So then the learning process is a bit longer and it was a little bit messier. But if you break it down, and I've even told this to people who bring me portfolios, if you break it down, and yes, it does sound boring to sit and spot blacks, but if you do that, over a course of pages, you can always pull those pages back and then start doing the backgrounds. But you don't see a lot of that right now in terms of becoming inkers and how I started working with Chance.
It gets rid of that nervousness too, because even though I'd been in the business for quite a while and inked some pretty cool stuff, and then all of a sudden I'm on Spawn and Cursive Spawn, all this, every page, up to the stuff I ink today, I'm still nervous. I'm my worst critic and I'm freaking out half the time. So if I'm sitting there with years in the business, I know when you, Jonathan, grab a page, you're like going, oh shit, look at this, man. It's like, this is going to get printed, right? And by starting with spotting blacks and stuff and a few rocks and some background stuff, it's a slow ease in. So your confidence level is much stronger when you're there to approach like a main character. Now you've built up the baby steps to it. And it's exactly, and your progress was so fast that, and then I started, learning from you.
Yeah, it was pretty terrible for quite a while.
Well, you thought that, but like, what was the first thing you went on just totally solo? Was it Sam and Twitch?
Sam and Twitch, yep. Met Todd in the hallway at and he said he had a book for me. And I thought he meant that he had a book for me to go down the hall and pick up, like a comic book. It was actually, he was offering me a gig, but I didn't get it. So, Sam and Twitch was the first over Angel Medina, and I had no clue how to crosshatch, and that's all he did. Yep. Talk about a nightmare.
You faked it well.
I was gonna lose my job.
That's a lot.
Angel was happy.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to dump on you at that early, but I think you handled it well. Your learning curve was much quicker. Yeah. Well, hey, I don't want to steal everyone's time because Jonathan and I talk for hours on the phone sometimes. So, anyways, just want to tell you, Jonathan, I'm so proud of you, dude. You've become the most badass inker, the guy I look up to now, and admire your work so much. And I just got to tell you, you killed it. You're doing awesome,
Thanks.
Man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. All right, take care, man.
All right, talk to you later.
All right, bye-bye.
Well, that was cool. I appreciate you coming up, Chance. That was
You bet.
You started the story with that talking about that and his introduction to the comics, and then you just popped in. Amen.
Well, it's awesome. Someone give me a tip. I really appreciate you letting me chat with Jonathan.
Of course, anytime.
All right, man. Hey, I'm new to this, so how do I disconnect from you?
So should be
Just
a red
unplug it from the wall.
turn it off and turn it back on again. There should be a red button with like a phone and an X on it. You'll just click that.
Okay. All right, guys. I'll keep listening, but I'll get off the line.
No
See you,
worries.
man.
Thanks, man.
All right, take care. See ya.
Jonathan, we got a few more questions from the audience. It seems like
Okay.
a lot of people are asking for advice. Katie Long asks, do you have any advice for us older folks trying to get into the industry? It seems like old dogs are persona non grata when it comes to getting the foot in the door. And then Flanky also asks, since you've been in the comic business for so long, do you know any other way to break into the industry without going to conventions?
Yeah. Yeah. So the first one, to the age thing, I don't know how old that person is. I personally, art, man, I to me, retiring, like an artist saying, "Oh, I'm retiring," is weird. It's foreign to me. So that suggests to me it doesn't matter how old you are, because you don't ever have to tell anybody your age. It's all, you're judged based on your portfolio and the work you do. So if you're able to produce quality work in hell, half the time you're not even showing your portfolio to like an actual person. Most companies, and this kind of can answer both of those questions. Most companies, whether I like it or not, they're kind of going and looking at your social media. They're looking at your Instagram. They're looking at your Twitter. Do you have a website? Those are kind of your places now that kind of replaced the old school way of, like, portfolio reviews at conventions. So that's kind of can be a cool and could be a bad and a good thing. I think in a way, if you know how to, if you're savvy enough to kind of know how to market yourself, and you know enough to show your best work or whatever through your social media, and your social media presence is more on the positive side. I think your reach is probably greater than waiting for a convention. So yeah, I don't think the age thing matters much.
Well, there you have it. Age is not an excuse to stop.
I mean, I most of you guys know me for, as far as inking goes, but I'm inking, if you notice, I'm inking less now and I'm drawing more.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought I would be doing covers, but you start taking on different challenges. I did the Patient Number 9 book with Todd, the Ozzy, for the Ozzy album. And when he called me to do that, I thought he was smoking something. I was like, where are you? What? And and this goes back to the social media thing too. Todd had mentioned me doing covers a while before the Ozzy thing, because he had saw what I was posting my personal work on Instagram, and I don't think he'd really ever seen a lot of my personal work. He just saw my inks. So he came up to me at a show actually in Phoenix after a panel he did, and he mentioned that he liked my personal work on Instagram, and he wanted to see if I could do some covers. So that's, you never know.
Exactly. Well, I actually have a question for you. You've worked on so many mainstream books and so many big titles.
Mm-hmm.
What are your goals, and what do you like? Is there any projects that you really want to work on, or goals that you're trying to create now that you've, are drawing more and creating your own stuff?
Yeah. So a funny thing happened with the Ozzy book that I didn't think I could do. I was constantly talking myself out of it. And I just didn't want fear to win, being afraid of doing it. So I had never had any thought of doing like any storytelling, even though that wasn't so much a sequential kind of thing. It was a very different book, but it was a good building block for giving me the confidence in forcing me to kind of when you're inking, you're not so much the engine. You're kind of always waiting to get the pages that have something on them. But then when it's you are the engine and you're looking at that blank page, you could look at it as a blank page, or you could look at it as I get to do something really cool and kind of attack it. And I think after the Ozzy project gave me more confidence than I ever had, because I completed something that I didn't think I could do. I wasn't sure that I could do. And so I was already doing covers for Todd, and with each cover, it built my confidence or whatever. And I just thought I just wanted to be a cover artist. And I've had a lot of really good conversations with Todd, and he's always given me really good advice.
And that was going to lead perfectly into Corey's question. He literally asked, knowing that Jonathan is doing more covers this year, any chance we'll be getting either interiors or any other creator-owned projects on the horizon? So I think you were going into that.
Yeah. So I'm kind of a weird dude. Like, I can have something going on and I don't like to say it because I can't tell you, I can't talk about it, it's top secret. It's more, I never count things until I'm actually doing them. But I will say that covers, I'm doing more covers. I actually turned in 3 covers just recently. I just turned in another one tonight. I did 2 covers last week or so, something like that. I'm confused. I'm tired. But I am wanting to do creator owned, and there might be something in the works.
Ooh. Well,
That you will not see. You will not see me teasing images. But yes.
No, we don't get no insight on the upcoming Jonathan stuff. Well, if there's any creator-owned creations, you'll have to keep us posted whenever you feel comfortable doing
when
that.
I can, yeah, when I can, and when yeah. But yeah, there's been a meeting had. We'll say that. So a man can't live on inking alone.
Something's coming. You heard it.
Something. I put it out there in the ether, so it has to happen. Something's coming.
Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. We are coming up on the hour. This is a last call for anybody to come on up, raise their hand, and ask questions themselves, or type them out in chat. I appreciate you giving us your time tonight, Jonathan.
Oh, yeah, I got nothing better to do.
I'm Hokage.
Go eat.
You did?
How's it going?
Hokage, you're good. I can hear you.
I bet. What's up, y'all?
Hey, what's going
on? Not much. Jonathan, you did this super fucking awesome cover for that Mercy comic.
Oh, yeah.
It's like got this white background and it's like her holding a mask. And like her mask, right? Cover. I'm sorry?
That was actually my first cover. That was
good. I didn't want to mistake that one for the other one I thought was your first, because it's part of the same variants. Is there like a style that's called? It's like so abstract, but it's still like a silhouette looking thing, but it's kind of abstract. I wonder if there's like a title.
Are you talking about Radiant Black? Are you talking about the You said it's a cover that I did? That's abstract?
Yeah,
kinda?
can you see our general chat? Do you see all the shit we're talking in there? All the numbers and whatnot?
I don't know. How do I see that? I don't know.
Oh.
So actually, you can click up above where we're at right now, and at the top you should see a general chat. If you click Kobe Cat, people are saying don't look in there. It's psychotic right now, but you can actually
Okay.
read chat while we're talking.
Yeah, I'd probably get off.
I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. I might have just complicated it. It's just the Mirka's and Dolpho's Mercies, the first like exclusive cover. It's your first one.
Yeah, that's just one that I did where she's pulling the mask off and it's actually her face. Yeah, that's just the
and the Galaxy. That's like super cool. I
Yeah.
was wondering if there's like a name for that style of work. Like I do a lot of my
No.
things like that, like through pencil, and I'm trying to like bridge the
Mhm.
gap to digital art, and I just can't really like connect the
No,
dots.
it's just
with
a
that.
digital paint. I just wanted to do it digitally because it gave me a lot of flexibility. So instead of tackling it traditional, I just did it digital. 'Cause I'm comfortable in Photoshop and
Okay.
Clip Studio and Painter and all that kind of stuff. Been using it forever, so it just it just depends. Like whenever I do some of these covers, my wife like she kind of cringes when they're not traditional because then I don't have a physical that we could plate or sell maybe. But sometimes she's like, might want to try to do a traditional, but the last, I'm trying to think. I did I don't know if I have a cover that's I don't know when this one comes out. But this one I did traditional and it's 17 by 22. I actually did it big. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll sketch it out digitally and then I'll light box it. I'll get everything in place where, however I like working digital and it's kind of the best of both worlds. Print that out and then I'll light box everything in and then kind of rough it in and then finish it up traditionally. But I bounce around. I'm all over the place. But there's
You got
no
any
style
advice
name.
for somebody that's trying to start into digital art for like that type of style?
Yeah, I mean, look at find digital if you're wanting to do some digital things, find some guys whose work you really like and kind of really curate what you're looking at. And just kind of draw some inspirations from maybe some of the stuff that you see that resonate with you.
Right.
Kind of what I did, and then just kind of really the trick is the more you're just in Photoshop, the more comfortable you're going to get, the more efficient you will be. In the beginning, you're always going to be using way too many brushes, but then as you get more accustomed to it and comfortable, you'll figure your way through the program. But yeah, just really the only thing is to just do it as much as you can.
I appreciate it. It's been quite the rabbit hole.
Yeah, it can be.
Appreciate you, Hokage, for coming up and asking that question.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thanks, man.
It seems like we don't got much more questions from the audience. She-Spawn asks for Tara to come up on stage and tell us a story about you. I don't know if she wants to do that. She got called out.
Oh God, she's dealing with toddlers right now.
Oh.
She has stories, trust me. She's got plenty of stories. Half of them have to do with looking for my. Oh, there she is. Dang it.
Welcome to stage, Tara.
Hi, it's Tara, but it's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that's here and supports Jonathan. It means the world to us. And yes, I have a lot of funny stories. Maybe that's for another time. We don't have enough time for that. But yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you allowing your husband to come on up. and do this.
Yeah, of course, anytime. I just have to mute myself because our 3-year-old is crazy right now.
Worries.
Yeah, she has the hard part. She's dealing with the 3-year-old. This is the witching hour.
Oh yes. Well, Jonathan, I don't want to take time, but I have one last question. What are your thoughts on like digital collectibles in this whole new industry? I know we got a few people in the audience that would be interested if you were to release something.
I don't have any.
He has one.
I do have one. Yeah.
It's one solitary one that we released like at the very first. And I will have to try and find a link. But yeah, we have one.
Ooh.
So the whole like the NFT thing is like I don't have any issues with it. I'm probably too old to quite understand, but I think it's cool that there's another form of a collectible, you know, that people are into. You know, I'm just used to like I don't know how to say it, like
holding it in your hand.
Whenever. No, you know what it is? It's when you're doing what I'm doing, we're sending files, we're sending JPEGs, we're sending, you know, TIFFs back and forth like it's nothing. And then to know that now that can exist for somebody to collect is just trippy to me. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh wow, that's another thing that you know that can be collected. To me, that's just I have to send this to the editor, you know. So I know there was a lot of like in the beginning. There's like I didn't get into all of that. I just thought, you know, I don't, you know, I'm just used to physical art. But if that's a thing that people are wanting to collect, I think it's cool too, though. You know what I mean? I just haven't really explored much of it.
For sure, yeah, it's still all super new, and I would love to see what first NFT. Oh, Nifty Gateway. Okay, yeah, I would love to see.
Yeah, and it's not even like it's kind of like me poking fun when I didn't understand it in the beginning. It's just a weird thing, and it's probably priced way too high.
No, it's definitely such a weird concept to get your head around, especially, yeah, like you said, when you're sending files constantly and it's your job. Now that you can sell the files, it's like, wow.
But, it's kind of different, you know. But yeah, you know, I have some interest in it. I just don't understand it.
For sure, yeah. And that's the thing with all new things, I guess, is it's new technology, new stuff to learn. Well, John, I appreciate you being here so much tonight, and tell the people where they can find you.
Hey, Tara, tell them.
Hey, okay, so this is why he has me here. So you can find him on Twitter, Jonathan Glapion. He's on Instagram at Jonathan Glapion. We have an email. We have a website. It's glapion.ink. And sign up for the newsletter. We send out emails. I always send out whenever his commission slots open and things like that, or if we are adding any product to the website. I think that's about it. Yeah, Twitter, Instagram, that's about the basic ones.
Yeah,
he's not on Facebook anymore. So
no, I'm not on Facebook.
If you message on
really
Aaron, sorry.
Yeah, I'm most active on Instagram and Twitter, but I'm not on Facebook at all.
Sweet. And yeah, definitely check out his website. It's probably the coolest website I've seen any comic artist have so far. Going through.
Thank you. I spend a lot of time on that.
Oh, it looks incredible. So definitely go check it out. And hopefully we can see you again sometime, Jonathan. I appreciate you being here. Make sure everyone out there,
absolutely.
We do have Peter Santa Maria coming on next week, so be tuned for that. John, have a great night. Tara, have a great night as well, and great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, you too.
All right,
bye.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.